So keep that in mind that we are recording this, and it will hopefully get posted to our website by early next week, in case you'd like to share this with any of your colleagues. Um, all right, I don't have a very strict agenda. This meeting was scheduled at the request of, I can't remember who, but it was brought up at a Tuesday call, I believe, last week, that there might be some confusion or maybe hesitation on what is expected with the CARES Act Community Action Plan that we are requiring and that is currently due May 17th. So I really want to spend the most of this meeting going over any questions you all might have. If we start to get into real nitty-gritty details on a particular program, I might ask that you email me about it so that we can talk one-on-one, but I'm happy to discuss anything that might impact more than one agency. But before we get into those questions, I do really quickly want to go through the template. I'm not going to go in depth on what's expected. I just want to make sure that you guys see, especially the things at the bottom of the plan. I'm afraid some might miss that and not answer some questions. So let me share content. Okay. All right, hopefully you all can see that. And just so you know, I believe I have everyone on mute. If you need to let me know something, you can go ahead and unmute yourself either by hitting the microphone if you're on your computer or *6 if you are on the phone. So hopefully you can all see my screen. It's got the action plan template for your CARES Act Community Action Plan. So it's a slight updated template from what we required last year. We really are just trying to get some specific details and are not asking for the full scope that we were asking for last year. So we're just asking for your budget, and we have broken it down in between what you have spent so far and then what you plan to spend, with a total given all the way on the right. And then we ask about your program information. So each program that you are funding or plan to fund with CARES Act should have its own table. You can copy and paste these if you need additional tables for additional programs. Each of these numbered items in the table have a corresponding question or prompt at the beginning. So if you read the table and you're wondering what exactly are we asking for, go ahead and scroll up and read the corresponding number so that you have a little bit more detail on what we're asking for. And then finally, the thing I want to make sure you all know is a thing. After describing your projects, we do have additional questions on major accomplishments. I believe this is something I'm going to need to report on with the CARES Act annual report that we need to submit in a couple of months. And we're also just curious to hear about what positive things are going on with your agency, specifically related to the CARES Act funds that you received and to your response to the COVID pandemic and the shutdown. So we ask two different questions. We're asking, what have you done internally in response to everything that's happened and maybe in response to these funds? So 'cause I know a lot of you have updated your internal processes and procedures. You've maybe invested in some tech, maybe brought on new staff members, anything along those lines that you think had a really big impact and a positive impact on your agency, we'd love to hear about here. And then after that, something that you all did for your community or for your clients specifically, we'd love to hear about that as well with the second question. So I just wanted to make sure that you were all aware that those questions were things and that this action plan did not end after describing your projects. So with that, I'll go ahead and stop sharing. When I sent out the invitation for this meeting, I included that template, I believe, and I know I included the example template. One of the questions that we received was about like the level of detail that is expected when describing projects, especially projects that you might not have fully planned at this point. So I came up with an example of what we might be looking for. I included that with the invitation to this. So if you have this meeting on your calendar, if you go to that calendar invite, you should be able to see that attachment. I will also post it to the website after today. I noticed this morning the general template is not currently on our website. Our website went through an update earlier this week that apparently took down quite a few things that have been posted recently. So I'll make sure that the general action plan template gets posted and also post the example that I shared with you all for this meeting. So with that, that was all the information I have to share up front, but I am happy to take questions from any folks on this action plan.
So Veronica, this is Jennifer. You know, I always have a question because I'm still learning. So thank you for your patience. It looks as though at first glance that the only thing that will be different from what we may have already provided you is A, update on the amount we've spent and what we have yet to spend, and then any programs additionally that we are thinking of going forward with. And that's all basically in budget. Obviously, we'll have the corresponding detail for all programs as well. Does that sound accurate?
Yeah, I think the questions we're asking might be slightly different. I think once we saw people's responses, we tried to tweak it to get to the information we're really looking for. But broadly, yes, we're just looking for to see what you guys have done so far and what you're thinking of doing. I know a lot of you had to change from your original plan. We had to ask that plan pretty quickly after we heard about the CARES funds. And so I know in the first initial months, plans changed wildly, and that is perfectly okay. That was that was definitely expected, and that's still expected. We know what you submit now is in some cases likely to change. We just need to see that some plans are at least in place or being put in place. So yes, to your question.
Do you want us to designate or note there may be a portion of the funding that we still yet have to, we may have some ideas of where we're going forward that's different and new, and we can list those and we can give you what we think we're going to be spending on that. But there still may be that area of, gosh, we're not sure what's going to happen in 6 months or 8 months. Kevin had a great example. He talked about the fact that we were talking about doing rental assistance, and then suddenly we have a rental assistance program from the state. So do you want us to list somewhere in those expenditures as yet to be decided, a potential area of funding that we may not have any idea yet where that's going to be spent?
We would like to see that there is an idea at least in place, maybe almost as like a backup. I understand if you're not ready or able to pull the trigger on all of your ideas now, that you maybe still want to wait to see what happens in the next 3 to 6 months. That's fine, but we're not. We don't want to see. I will probably respond and ask you to make some updates if I see just a general TBD. What I might see, so in the example that I provided, I try to make the second project that was described be somewhat vague, as kind of something like, here's something we've noticed is currently a top need, and so something we are considering doing. And here's just some general thoughts on how that might go. So you can go to that level of detail in your budget. If you're maybe considering between two things, I'd be willing to see maybe it's a job training or educational assistance to kids. But I do need to see that there's at least an idea for all of the funds, since we are getting now down to less than a year and a half in order to plan and implement projects, and also considering that your target clients are going to be changing quite a bit in the next 3 to 6 months with the change in eligibility. So we just want to make sure that there are plans or ideas in place.
Okay, and that you hit the nail on the head on it with the intent or purpose that we are considering providing. That's the line that's going to be important. Under that, you also go ahead and check, yes, it was started because of COVID cares in that category, which even though it hasn't been started and we're considering, that's the designation you want us to give on those considered programs, correct?
Yeah, if it's not something that you've that you don't currently have in place, then yes, you would check that, even if it's not something you're going to do for another 3 or 6 months. And that's something you can reflect. It should be, I think, the last question when it asks, when was this program started? Or it might ask, when is that? So just put that there, fall of 2021 or something along those lines.
And obviously, we'll be updating these as we go, I'm sure. And so if this doesn't pan out or whatever happens, we can let you know. I think that answers everything for me, and that's very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And speaking of updates, so I'll let everyone know as well, when we do your regular community action plans, which will be later this year, currently they are scheduled to be posted in September and due at the end of November. We're giving you a few extra weeks this year, or at least that's the plan right now. We will explicitly be asking for CARES programs to be included in that. I know some agencies did include those, but some didn't. We weren't explicit in our instructions last year, so that's totally fine. But this coming year, we are going to be asking for that, so you can reflect updates there to anything that has happened in between this plan and that plan. And then also most likely we'll be asking for a final update on this next year, since this is, a multi-year thing. We're going to be just going ahead and asking for updates and most likely tying it to when you all do an annual report on these funds. So you'll definitely have opportunities for when we're asking for updates, and you can reflect that. You don't need to come back to us in a couple weeks if you already have a major change. You can just go ahead and wait for those plan updates to occur as scheduled. So, any other questions?
Hey, Veronica, it's Terrence.
Hi, Terrence.
Hey, question. We sub-awarded some of our award to like 11 or 12 different organizations. Do you want us to like mention them separately, or do you want us to kind of lump them together? So say they're doing workforce development. You want us to just lump them all under workforce development, or you want them listed individually? Because they all could be doing something, different things.
Preference would be listed individually, especially if they are taking slightly different tactics, strategies, target populations. But if there are like 2 or 3 that are focusing on very similar things and doing very similar actions, so that it would make sense for them to fall under the same program, and they're just implementing that particular program at 2 different sites, then that would be acceptable. But definitely if they're doing different things, like different goals, different target populations, things along those lines, then they should be listed separately.
Okay.
Veronica, this is Kevin. We should plan for the income guidelines to change October 1.
So far, we haven't heard anything about that not occurring as of yet. So yes, go ahead, and you don't necessarily need to reflect that in this particular document. That will need to be reflected in the regular community action plan, which is why we're going to specifically be asking for your CARES programs to be included in that, so that the information on any active CARES programs will show that they are being done for those at 125% of the FPL. But in general, yes, you should be getting ready for that, because that seems to be what's going to occur on October 1 of this year.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, good question so far. Any others? All right, if nothing else, I'll just go ahead and give everyone back. Looks like 45 minutes to their day.
Thank you for your time today. I appreciate it. I had a lot of questions as always, so we appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries. Happy to get everyone together so we can address questions all at the same time. And my goal is always to make you all as comfortable as possible filling out documents like this. So um, I'll let you all go. So like I said, this is being recorded. I will post the recording to this and as well as the templates, both the general open template and then my example template to our website, hopefully by early next week. And happy to take any individual questions if you guys want to shoot an email to me and so we can work on that. Otherwise, one other thing, there is a folder now in your shared file. Someone brought to my attention, I never told you how you're supposed to send these updates to me. There is now a CARES Act action plan folder in that shared file, same place as where you have your annual reports and your community action plans. So you should save your updated template there. And I'll include that in emails to come out in the next couple of weeks. But I wanted to point that out to everyone here that if you have stuff you're ready to save and or have reviewed by HCDA, you can save it there. So that should be everything. And like I said, if you need anything else, go ahead and email me. Happy to work it out with you. Otherwise, have a good rest of your Thursday, and I'll probably talk to most of you next Tuesday. So bye, everyone.